The laughter started before the challenge did. It rolled across the gym like careless thunder, loud and confident, the kind that assumed it could never be wrong. The black belt stood in the center of the mat, arms crossed, sweat shining on his tattooed forearms while the cleaning lady froze near the edge of the room, mop in one hand, bucket in the other. "Come on," he said with a grin that drew more laughs. "Just for fun. One round. Show us what you've got." No one noticed how her fingers tightened around the mop handle, or how her eyes, soft but steady, never left his face. Her name was Grace, and in that moment the whole gym was about to learn what her silence had been hiding. Grace had been cleaning St. Michael's Martial Arts Academy for almost 2 years. She arrived before dawn and stayed late into the evening, quietly wiping sweat from mirrors, disinfecting mats, emptying trash cans filled with broken tape and bruised pride. Most people barely noticed her. To them, she was just the woman in gray sneakers and a faded hoodie, moving around the gym like part of the background. A few nodded politely. Some never learned her name. And a few, like Ethan Cole, the gym star black belt, treated her like an invisible audience for their greatness. Ethan was everything Grace was not: loud, confident, admired. He had won regional tournaments, posted highlight reels online, and carried himself like a man who believed the world had already crowned him. Students gathered around him after classes, hanging on his words. He thrived on attention, on proving, again and again, that he was the best person in any room with mats on the floor. That afternoon, after demolishing a younger opponent during sparring, he noticed Grace watching from the corner as she waited for the class to finish so she could clean. "Well," Ethan called out, half joking, half challenging, "you look like you've got something to say." Grace shook her head gently. "No, sir, just waiting." Someone snickered. Another student muttered, "Maybe she thinks she can do better." The idea landed like a spark on dry leaves. Ethan's grin widened. "Hey, why not?" he said loudly. "Grace, right? You want to try? One round, friendly spar, we could use a laugh." The room erupted. Phones came out. Someone clapped. Someone else said, "Careful, man, she might mop the floor with you," which earned even more laughter. Grace felt heat rise to her face, not from embarrassment alone, but from something deeper, memories she rarely allowed herself to revisit. She had promised herself long ago to keep that part of her life buried. She was here to work, to earn money, to go home to her small apartment and her quiet evenings. Not to be seen, not to be tested. "I'm just here to clean," she said softly. Ethan shrugged, already stepping onto the mat. "Relax, it's a joke." But jokes can cut deeper than blades, and something in Grace finally reached its limit. Maybe it was the way everyone assumed she was weak. Maybe it was the careless cruelty disguised as humor. Or maybe it was the echo of a voice from her past, telling her that hiding forever was another kind of prison. She set the mop down. The laughter faded just a little. "Just one round," Grace said. Her voice didn't shake. "Light sparring." Ethan blinked, surprised, then laughed again. "You heard her, guys." Coach Matthew, the gym's owner, hesitated. He was a former fighter himself, a man who prided himself on discipline and respect. Something about Grace's posture, straight, balanced, made him uneasy. "Ethan," he warned, "keep it controlled." "Always do," Ethan replied. Grace stepped onto the mat and slipped off her sneakers. She stood barefoot, hands relaxed at her sides. No stance, no show. Some students exchanged confused looks. The bell rang. Ethan moved first, casually, throwing a slow jab meant more to tease than to land. Grace shifted just enough. The punch sliced through empty air. Ethan frowned, then tried again, faster this time. Again, she wasn't there. No panic, no wasted movement, just calm. The gym went quiet. Ethan's smile vanished. He stepped in with a combination, speed increasing, pride flaring. Grace raised her arms, blocking with precision that came from thousands of repetitions, not from luck. She pivoted, guided his momentum past her, and for the briefest moment he stumbled. Someone gasped. Grace could hear her own heartbeat now, steady and familiar. The mat beneath her feet felt like home, and memories flooded back, early mornings in a different gym, a different country, a different life. Her father, Daniel, correcting her stance. "Balance, Gracie," he used to say. "Strength means nothing without balance." Her husband, Thomas, smiling proudly at her first tournament medal. And then the accident, the hospital room, the funeral. The years she spent running from everything that reminded her of who she used to be. Ethan charged again, anger sharpening his movements. This time, Grace met him head-on. She slipped inside his guard, hooked his leg, and with a clean, controlled motion, sent him to the mat. The sound was unmistakable. The gym fell completely silent. Grace didn't celebrate, she didn't smirk. She stepped back and offered a hand. Ethan stared up at her, stunned, his chest heaving, not from exhaustion but from shock. "Enough," Coach Matthew said quickly, stepping in. Grace nodded and helped Ethan to his feet. Her hands were steady. No one laughed now. Phones lowered, mouths hung open. Coach Matthew looked at Grace as if seeing her for the first time. "Where did you train?" he asked quietly. Grace hesitated. "A long time ago," she said. "My father was a coach, my husband too." Ethan swallowed hard. "You could have hurt me," he muttered. "I didn't want to," Grace replied. "That's the point." Class ended early that day. People left in silence, their assumptions rearranged in ways they didn't yet understand. Ethan sat on the bench, staring at the floor, his world cracked open by a woman he had dismissed as invisible. Later that evening, as Grace returned to cleaning, Coach Matthew approached her. "You don't have to stay invisible here," he said. "If you ever want to train or teach, the door's open." Grace smiled, small but genuine. "Thank you, I'll think about it." Ethan waited until they were alone. "I'm sorry," he said. The words were stiff, unused. I don't know what I thought." Grace met his eyes. "Strength isn't about belts or titles," she said gently. "It's about respect." Weeks passed. Grace began staying after hours, first just to stretch, then to train. Students watched her with new eyes. Some asked questions, some asked for help. Ethan trained differently now, quieter, humbler, listening more than talking. One evening he asked Grace to spar again, properly this time. She agreed. They bowed to each other. And this time there was no laughter, only respect. The story spread online, clipped and shared. But those who were there knew the real lesson wasn't about a black belt losing a round. It was about how easily we underestimate people, how often we mistake silence for weakness, and how true strength doesn't need to announce itself. Grace kept cleaning the gym, but she also began teaching a small class, kids, beginners, people who were afraid to step onto the mat. She taught them balance before power, patience before pride. And every time she picked up a mop at the end of the night, she did so with her head high, no longer invisible. Because sometimes, the quietest person in the room carries the strongest story. And when it finally speaks, the whole world goes silent to listen.